Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming this afternoon. It's hot outside and it's nice in here. If you have a phone, would you please silence it? You know, there's nothing more exciting than for me to talk and have phones go off in different jingles. Yes, I can do that. My name is Joe Skaff. I've lived in Tuolumne County for about 30 years. My wife and I lived in Tuolumne County for about 30 years, and I'm a volunteer community educator for the Alzheimer's Association. And this presentation today I'm dedicating to my wife, Terry. I'll explain more later. Some of you may recognize Terry. You won't see her up here, but if I were to bring a picture in, some of you may know her. So this is a subject that touches a lot of people, but just for interest for me, how many of you know somebody that has Alzheimer's or dementia? Somebody. Okay. Now, if you know more than one, would you raise your fingers? How many people do you know? 5, 6, 7? How many fingers? And now, please, if you know one person, raise one finger. Okay, look around the room. 2, there's a lot of people that you know. Some have passed away. Some are active right now. Some are early onset Alzheimer's. Some people you recognize them as having memory loss or cognition loss. And if I'm not speaking loud enough for the people in the back, please let me know. Raise your hand or something, and I'll speak louder. I can do that. I can speak louder. The information that you have on your seats is all valuable, but the most important thing I'm going to give you today, more than the PowerPoint, more than my information I'm talking about to you, the most important thing I have for you is the card. And if you don't mind, I'd like to refer to that card right now. On this card is a number. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Very confidential number. It goes to the Alzheimer's Association. These are master's level clinicians. You're going to ask a question today, and I can't answer it. I won't fill you full of sunshine. If I don't know the answer, I call that number and find out what it is. When I started this, I had no idea what Lewy bodies was. I thought it was a planet. I had no idea what that was, because there's so many kinds of dementia, Alzheimer's being the number one thing. I always get that question, what's the difference? And if you have that question, if you ask that question, I will tell you the response. I'll tell you the answer to it if you want to know. The card here I've called that card about 50 times since February, because I call it a lot just on my own. I want to know about Parkinson's disease and bloodborne pathogens. I want to know does anything affect Alzheimer's? Does everything affect Alzheimer's? I want to know about people that have Alzheimer's, that their behavior changes radically. They're very sweet and kind their whole life, and all of a sudden they're aggressive and assertive, hostile almost. Is that Alzheimer's, or is that another kind of trauma? We'll talk about that today too. So I'm going to work through this PowerPoint presentation and tell you my story along the way. Thank you for your patience, by the way. So I found out that the Alzheimer's Association, before I do this is May 16th, so it's a week ago. Alzheimer's Association statement on first blood test used to diagnose Alzheimer's. That's a very exciting chunk of work right there. The only thing it's cleared by the FDA, and Alzheimer's Association has approved it. Now, if you're like me, you go in your browser on your computer and you see, on mine, it's every other scan is cure for Alzheimer's. Dementia is resolved. This new medicine, if it's not approved by the FDA, it's not alive. It doesn't matter. So this blood test is active, approved by the FDA and the Alzheimer's Association. The only thing it's not approved by are insurance. Now, if you've ever had a medication new on the market and your insurance doesn't cover it, it can be really expensive. Whatever you have, if it's a cancer, for instance, if you have a medication for cancer and your insurance doesn't pick it up, you have to get a job. I used to tell a lot of jokes about retired people, but they don't work. So I have this article. I just got it. My staff liaison, my mentor in San Jose, we're in Northern California, Northern Nevada. That's a lot of territory. But every territory has an Alzheimer's Association nationally. This disease is international, worldwide. So you might be here because you have a friend who has been diagnosed, or you might be here because you have a friend you think should be diagnosed. You might be here because you might be diagnosed. Maybe you think your memory loss is just not normal. There's two words I'm going to use a lot today, and that's daily life. If your memory loss affects you daily, if your daily life is affected, then it's time to talk with your doctor. And I'm going to tell you a test. You don't have to write it down. Cognitive health assessment. We all have, most of us have Medicare, and we have a Medicare annual health checkup. And your doctor can give you a cognitive health assessment. It's not a full neurological health scan, but it pays off and it makes a difference. I spoke at Sierra Bible Church 2 weeks ago, and we had a gift. There was a gentleman who came in. I'll just say his name is Pat. And Pat has early onset dementia. And he came in the room, and I'd asked him to join us if he felt comfortable. And he came in the room, and I said, Pat, tell us what's going on with you. And he explained what it's like right now, physically, emotionally, and mentally for him. And he could talk, but then he would lose some words. He stopped in the middle of a sentence, which are indicative of a person with cognitive decline. Now, there's no judging, and there's no negative aspect to it. I do know somebody, though, that speaks to his spouse like this. Shirley, I just told you that 5 minutes ago. Or ask this question. Here's the question. These are things, here's what you're not going to do. Here's what you're not going to do. Lolly, don't you remember what we just talked about? Because the Alzheimer's patient does not remember that. My wife, for instance, if she could remember, she would remember. So whoever you're talking about, understand that they would do anything to be able to express themselves, to be able to tell you how they're feeling. I've invited somebody here today that may share a story when he's up to it, if he's up to it. And if you're in here today and you're going to share, by the way, I'm the kind of person that this is meaningful, but you are absolutely important. So if you have a story or a testimony, or if you've got a question at any time, just raise your hand, please. That's so important for all of us. The rubber meets the road where you step on it. That's very important. All of us have somebody. Terry was an administrative secretary to superintendents in 4 different school districts. She was excellent at mathematics and writing skills. She was one of those people that, cursive, some people that write in cursive like John Hancock, just incredibly beautiful. That was her. In September of 2020, by the way, my wife did all of our checking because I'm an ignoramus when it comes to, I can't do my checkbook now. And she knew where she was going at all times. Whenever we travel in a car, she was the navigator. She always knew where she was going. So basically now I have no idea where I'm going in my car without Terry. In your hand, you have this slide. I'll keep going back and forth to Terry. You see the slide? You have this kind of a picture on your seat. What you have is the 2025 version. You can see some changes on yours. Can anyone see the difference between the slide that's here, 2024, and what you have in your hand? And just, what do you think? Which one shows up as different? It's okay. There's no wrong answer. You'll see it. Anybody? What's different? Let's have 11 million. Yeah. The one you have in your hand is 7 million because things have reduced somewhat. Internationally, however, it's 8 million. That doesn't reflect on yours. This is from the United States. They just had a webinar 2 days ago. There's a flyer I'd like you to pick up before you leave today. There's 3 things I ask you to do today, one of which you're not going to want to do. That's encouraging, isn't it? This is online education program, so anything you're interested in, whether it's Alzheimer's or Lewy body or vascular dementia or dementia versus Alzheimer's, how do you help a family and you're not involved with the family, you just want to help that family? How do you help a spouse or a father or a sibling? Alzheimer's is an evil disease. If you know somebody with Alzheimer's, you're living closely. I was a 24-hour-a-day caregiver for 5 years, only because my wife's life became my life. And I don't know another way to do it. I didn't have this information. I didn't know anything. We had no caregiver group, which we're starting in June, a support group for caregivers of dementia. It'll be in Willow Springs because that's the facility I could get for no cost. That's a God thing, I think. So these stats are important for you just to look at, especially the one up here. It kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. How fast is it? It's up to you. Your brain is different than my brain. Terry's went slow at the beginning from 2020. She realized because her mother passed away of Alzheimer's. She had a DNA lock there. Her mother passed away of Alzheimer's. So as it went on, 2020, she was like I am right now, just cognizant, alert. She could speak, but she just couldn't do numbers anymore. She balanced the checkbook. She said, I can't balance the checkbook anymore. This is September of 2020, no kidding. I'm going to tell some funny stories today. They're all real. It's true. I'm not making them up. And so we went and looked at the book, and she could not physically add those numbers up. In late 2020, she was writing a letter to her mom, I'm sorry. And she started to write the letter, and she couldn't write anymore. It was like something took over. By the way, if I come up and kiss you, you're not going to get Alzheimer's. It's not catchable. It's not like a disease like that. It affects the cells in our brains. There's amyloid plaque and tau tangles. One of those cellular destroyers affects the middle between the cells, and the other one attacks inside the cells. And if you have Lewy bodies, it's the same thing, but they're proteins that are negative that affect the cell. So the cellular structure in our brains changes based on you. Some of you, the people you know will have a faster decline. My son and my daughter, I would write them every time something happened to Terry, a dramatic change. And I'd say, hey, if you guys can come sooner than later. It's not like a cold. You know it's not going to go away. It's just progressive, one step at a time. Some people, I have a friend right now that I go fishing with. His wife said he can't be left alone. I have to keep my eyes on him all the time because he is a wanderer. Terry was never a wanderer, but that's part of the disease. Everybody struggles with different things. I was asked the other day, yesterday, in fact, I was at Homeowners Association doing a caregiving module. There are 5 modules, and they're all really powerful. This is the only one without a voice on the screen. I'm sorry. So you get me, and that's probably a good thing for you. There we go. Prop time. Does anybody have a question about what the difference is between Alzheimer's and dementia? Anybody? It's okay. I guess you know then. Okay. No? Okay. This is my prop. It's not going to rain in here. Excuse me for a second. Would you hold this just for a second? Don't talk into it. Don't do it. Thank you. I told Guy I'm an optimist. This has one shaft. Our umbrellas only have one shaft. Dementia has 5 or 6 shafts to it. It's an umbrella covering over what we consider Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the main shaft that holds up dementia. As you can see, based on it has 60-80% of dementia is caused by Alzheimer's. So if you have Alzheimer's, you have dementia. But if you look at the diagram up here, if you have dementia, you don't necessarily have Alzheimer's. It's just to clarify things. So when you hear somebody go, "Oh, he's got dementia," it's if he's been diagnosed with a dementia, whoever it is probably does. Just remember, if he has Alzheimer's, he has dementia, but not the opposite. This is a handy little thing that I carry in case it rains inside, but it won't today. Any questions about these? Does anybody know anybody that has vascular dementia? Been diagnosed with vascular? It's like a stroke. The blood does not carry enough oxygen to the brain, basically, simply. Anybody know that? How many of you know somebody with Alzheimer's as a dementia? Alzheimer's. I can raise my hand because that's what my wife died of. How many of you know somebody with Lewy body? You've heard that term, Lewy body disease. The gentleman's doctor's name was Louis. And the proteins that he found would invade between the cells and the cells themselves, forming Lewy bodies of protein. Frontotemporal is the front of your head, and the temples on the side of your head. It's all cellular. Now, if you have a question or a story, this is the time to think about it. Brain disease causes these things. It affects your memory and your thinking and your behavior. Terry's behavior never changed. She was as sweet as the day is long. And if you knew her, you would say the same thing. Until the last breath that she took, she was a sweet human being. She never changed. You had a question?
Yes. I have a relative who has been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment.
Keep speaking.
A relative of mine has been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. On that screen, that umbrella screen,
yes.
Is that one of those 5?
Yes.
One of them. Okay, that's all I need.
So, did you hear the question? Okay. Her question was, she has a friend or relative that's been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. I have mild cognitive impairment periodically. Okay, and we were talking about this. I'm at my dining room table and I have to get my ruler out of my office. Now, you'll know exactly what I mean. You're a different room. So I get up from my dining room table and I walk into the office and I'm in my office. Okay, now why did I come in here? Or I put my keys down in the same spot. Every time I drop my keys when I get home, I drop them in the same spot, except when I don't. And I put them somewhere and I have no clue where those keys are. So I have to go around the house like I'm an investigator. Or I put my phone down. I'm forever leaving my phone in the same place except when I don't, and that's almost all the time. I think I don't even leave my phone anywhere commonly, so I have to call my phone from my landline. Now, here's what's new for me. Guy called me yesterday, or the day before, and I'm working in the yard. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm working in the yard, and Guy calls me. My phone's in the house. My arm rings. So I'm looking at my phone, and I'm talking to him like Dick Tracy. I said, this is the freakiest thing I've ever had in my life. It's like the old cartoon. I'm looking at my watch, talking in my watch. Now, the Alzheimer's patient will walk into the room looking for a ruler. She goes into the room, stands there and looks and what am I here for? And that's the end of it. And she will go to another room because it's over. That the reason is over. So Terry lost many things. After the first year, we did Zoom calls with UC Davis. We were with a neurological team, and we would meet with a social worker or a counselor or a neurologist. And the neurologist would say, we're going to Zoom. I need to see Terry. I want to see how she's doing physically. And the first couple of years, you couldn't notice any difference. So Terry she always looked good, but she didn't like to look in front of the Zoom. She wasn't a Zoomer. Zoom. So he would say, I'm going to call her. Now, this was interesting. I'm on this computer. I'm talking to him on Zoom, and he's picking up his phone and calling me at home. So I got my phone here. He's on the screen, and he said, I need to talk to Terry. And she's looking here and looking at him on here, and he's calling on the cell phone, on the landline. Hi, Dr. Bissig. Can I talk to Terry? She's right over here. So she would not go in front of the screen. I came over here and handed her the phone. Oh, she didn't speak. She said, just stood there. He said, Terry, I want you to repeat these 3 words. Tree. I don't remember. I'm just going to lay up 3 words. Tree, house, and spider. Can you repeat those? And she said, totally unintelligible. Now, what's happening? Her brain had slid even more in 3 weeks. Now, that was just how she went. My friend that I talked about went fishing. He can talk exactly like I'm talking. But when he's talking to me, he can talk exactly like I'm talking. Except when he's talking to me, he can talk, so he goes over and over. He'll repeat and repeat and repeat. Somebody asked me this excuse me, I did a presentation at Willow Springs Clubhouse yesterday. Somebody asked me this question. I have my sister is diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, not just dementia. And she repeats sentences over and over. I don't know what to do. So there's two things I told her to do. You have a card in front of you with a number on it. 2 weeks ago, I was at a place. The lady was adamant that she wanted help. And I said, I tell you what, let's call this number right here, right now. So if Rocco, if you had a question, we'd call this number, talk to a person on the other line, and they will find out the answer. I had a gentleman, one of the presentations, that had intensive Parkinson's disease. There's Parkinson's disease dementia. I didn't know that, but there is. And we called that number, and everybody was listening. And he asked, I said, Rocco, you asked the question, you asked me. And Rocco would ask the question, and the person answered. The integrity of these people are incredible. And, you know, my contact, and I have a staff partner, they're called, Vanessa in San Jose. And she gave me this information last Friday afternoon, and it rocked my life for the positive. She said, based on the number of presentations that you're doing, and this has zero, absolutely zero to do with me. Nothing. It's all about information for you to deal with whoever you're dealing with. She said, based on that, and the people calling this number from the presentations here in Tuolumne County have been more than any other area in Northern California, Northern Nevada. That's because you take it home and you're serious about wanting to find out what we're talking about here. You might not say anything today. You have a question that you're burning, you're dying to ask. Well, if you're dying to ask and you can't ask it here, that's okay. Just call the number. I had a lady dealing with cancer at the hospital. Do you like these stories? Because it's applicable to everybody. Had a lady in a group on Tuesday, hospital volunteers, real sweet group of people, 30 men and women. And I asked the same question, how many of you know somebody with Alzheimer's? And every hand went up except one, every hand. And this lady didn't raise her hand, but at the end of the time, the president of this organization said, you know, I asked her to stand when it was time for me to quit. So 10 minutes after I was done, she stood up because she wanted me to have more time and said, let's have Joe, any more questions? One more question. And this woman said, my great-grandmother, and she started to cry, my grandmother and my mother passed away from Alzheimer's, and I can feel it coming. I feel it coming to me. And she got very excited. And I live alone. And I hurt so bad for her. The lady, her name is Teresa Nelson. Do you know Teresa? She's active in the county. And she told me, and I said, look, she said, what do I do? And I'm a volunteer. And I said, what am I going to say to this person? I said, I'm going to give you two ideas. One is, I want you to call this number within 24 hours, and one of us is going to contact you to make sure that you've done that, because you will find an answer. But living alone, that's tough stuff. There are many families like hers. She's got kids that don't want to have anything to do with the disease because they can't face the loss of their mother. We have two of our oldest kids. Terry has two children that are 54 and 55. Now, looking at me, you're probably saying you had kids when you were 6 years old. That's true. Very, very young. So the kids were Elizabeth and David. Elizabeth would come up every 6 weeks. So I'd write about the changes I saw in my wife, and Lizzie would come up to see those changes. She wanted to see her mother physically. Is this true? Is it possible? And those of you that knew Terry, that were around her enough, you saw those changes. Didn't you say, Kathy? Wouldn't you say? You could see her diminish. If you're a caregiver and you're with somebody all the time, you see it. But somebody that knows her and they haven't seen her for a while, and they see her or they see him, there's a big change. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Just as a friend, person to person. Because Alzheimer's patients are just like you and me. And maybe we all have Alzheimer's. But we're just like us. We're very sensitive to people's feelings, very tuned in to how, if you're coming at me with anger, I sense it. There's a sense about that. And if you sense that, what happened, Terry? What's going on with you? There's two things she wanted to do. She always wanted to go to church on Sunday, even to probably the last Sunday before she died, to worship. And there was no keeping her home. There was none of that for me. That was it. But she wouldn't go out any other time. So I'm going to give you an example. The last week of her life, she couldn't walk. She couldn't speak. Her vision was gone. She didn't eat. She forgot how to open her mouth, and when she opened her mouth, I put pills in her tongue, and she just let them sit there. And I'll talk a little bit about that's part of the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's is that slow decline. It doesn't happen to everybody. Sometimes it happens very quickly. But all I can say for sure is once a person is diagnosed with this disease, it's non-retractable. It doesn't go backwards. And that's what this organization is trying to do. I'm not here to raise funds. That's not what this is about. But they use billions of dollars, as you saw on one of the slides, and you have it on that colored slide from 2025. Any questions yet? Anybody? Or statements or comments or anything you have to share? Please.
What about the main one that we're dealing with our daughter is her wanting to get away? She drove a car somewhere where she never drove before, and we had to go find her. And then the other one is the fact that when you walk with her, she wants to run away, and she doesn't want to come back to whoever's with her. Now she's got all those alarm bracelets and the phone and all that, but why do they feel like they have to leave?
That's a great question, and the answer is that some people with Alzheimer's in the latter stages are called wanderers, and they do wander. And that's why I never had that problem, or else I'd have to deadbolt my house in a different way. My friend that I was telling you about likes to go, okay, I'll just be honest with you, he's my fishing friend. Okay, he likes to go fishing. The last time I was at his house, 3 weeks ago, I went to his house. I haven't fished in 3 years because I couldn't not leave my wife. Can't just take off and leave an Alzheimer's patient in the house. She freaked out. I don't know if the person you're talking about has the same. They're super frustrated at not being able to be their normal self. But they're in there, by the way. The person that you love is inside there, whether it's a spouse or a friend. Last night I was asked a question by a husband and wife team who have a son that's diagnosed. He has a female roommate that's being a caregiver, but she works full time, and they're torn about what do I do? What does she do now? He works full time, and he has caregiver full time. Except when he's working, she's alone. How does that happen? What happens if he's a wanderer? You have to secure your home in some way, or you have to find somebody else. Alzheimer's Association. The next thing I would do here would be a caregiver group, and the caregiver is pretty cool because they have lots of video about people that are caregivers and what they're going through. Alzheimer's Association has a respite grant for me, the caregiver. Oh, I would have loved to have had this. I would love to have known that. Respite grant means Alzheimer's Association is going to give me money to hire you to come in for 4 hours and sit with Terry while I ran some errands or did some things. So I went fishing with Joe. I went to fish with Joe, and his wife said, you cannot leave him alone. I mentioned that before. I have an orange vest. I put it on him. Before we left, I said, Joe, what are you going to take today? Are we going to fish fly fishing or are we going to do spin fishing? He said, let me go see. So we went in his garage, and he has a tackle box and about 100,000 rods against the wall, one of those guys. He's the kind of guy, when you go fishing with him, he catches fish. I don't care if you're fishing on a street, he will catch a fish. This guy is incredible. He goes up to his tackle box, and he looks at the tackle box, and he looks at that tackle box, and he looks at that tackle box. He said, I'm not exactly sure. So I opened it for him, and he looked in there, and men's tackle boxes are like your messy drawer in the kitchen. Everything is in there generally. His was very neat. Mine's neater, but his is pristine. So he looked at it. He had no idea what he was looking at. Zero. It could have been a safe with money in it for all he knew. It could have been anything. I cried my eyes out. Yeah, seeing my friend like that. But that's the kind of stuff that happens. Maybe your parent has Alzheimer's. Maybe you are a parent maybe you have a parent that has Alzheimer's, had Alzheimer's, and your concern is, how do I'm only part-time, I only can see him once every couple of weeks, and a lot of people can do that. Your job is to love that person fully as best you can, without hesitation, no criticisms. Now, somebody asked me this question just yesterday. Can anybody be a caregiver? No. And you probably know that. Some people just have zero patience. And if you don't have patience with a person with dementia, it's harder for you. It is much more difficult for you, and that reflects to the person. If you're upset or frustrated, the person living with dementia knows that, they sense that, and they say, I'm at fault. They're not at fault. It's just the way it goes. And you definitely, I learned patience. I'm the most impatient person you ever walked on earth with. But I had to learn a lot of patience. I had to learn loving unconditionally. As I said before, my wife's life became my life, and that was the only way we could walk through it. We had a secret. Maybe you have a secret with somebody that you love too. The secret was, when she first was diagnosed, I said to her this: as long as I'm alive, healthy, and I can do this spiritually, mentally, and physically, and emotionally, I'm going to care for you in the house, because she said, I do not want to go into a facility. Her mom was in a facility in Long Beach, and it was horrid for her. It was that experience, that place for her mother. Not, there are great places around. But the siblings were responsible. Dad had died, and the siblings decided we can't take care of her because everybody was working. So they put her in the facility in Long Beach, and she eventually died. The only thing she had remaining was that she worshiped the Lord. And I'm not being offensive. I don't mean to be offending anybody for any religion. So she worshiped freely. She was a charismatic Christian. So she knew worship songs back to the Stone Age. She just knew everything. The only thing she could respond to is if Terry came into the room, and her mother did not know her. She did not recognize her at all. Not the smell of her, not her face. Even when she said, Mom, it's Terry. Didn't matter. She said, oh, but she didn't. She said that out of courtesy. The only thing she could do was this. Terry would go, Jesus loves me, this I know. And her mom would go, Jesus loves me. And she'd start to sing along with her. That was the only thing that got her. You ever see the last concert that Tony Bennett gave? He walked on the stage with Lady Gaga, half there. He walked up. By the way, he had no idea where he was, why he was there, or who he was with. And she put him by the piano, and he put his arm on the piano, and he started singing the Great American Songbook. Probably 1,000 times. He's done that maybe more than 1,000 times. Every song he sang was complete, Tony Bennett-like, perfect. And when it was over, everybody stood. If you saw that special, everybody stood and wept. But when it was over, he grabbed her arm and went right back and went off the stage. I read something from his wife, and it was such a shock. I really liked his singing. I really liked him. He was a model for me. So Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging, but age is a normal part of some of the things we go through as we get older. Memory, forgetting names sometimes, but it usually comes back to you. Again, if it affects your daily life, that's what matters. By the way, if you're 65 and over, your risk increases, it doubles every 5 years if you have no DNA sampling whatsoever in your life. Now, our kids had their grandmother die of Alzheimer's, and now their mother. So their risk is there. It doesn't mean they're going to have a dementia. Please understand, it doesn't mean that. So what about the person that flips their personality and gets hostile? Or, I'll do that one. They get upset. Well, let's say the person is a Vietnam vet or came back with PTSD. Let's say the person was in a horrific accident, and the trauma of that accident can easily cause a behavior change. Everything that we hear isn't always caused by a dementia. It can be caused by mixed things in a person's life. That's why it's better to dig. The person on Tuesday, when I gave this presentation, said, there's so many, forgive me. No, I just forgot this, so I'm gonna have to come back to it. I just absolutely forgot what I was gonna say. Don't say I have anything. So family history is a big factor, it really is. So if you are genetically predisposed, a mother, or like Terry passed away with her mother passing away, our kids they have a higher risk. Does it mean they're gonna have Alzheimer's in their life? No, it doesn't mean that, but the risk is higher. By the way, I have Google as my browser on my computer, and every day when I go to Google, every day on a scrolling rotation, and on your browsers too, there is a new cure for Alzheimer's. Did I already say this? There's a new cure. There's a new medicine coming out. If it's not approved by the FDA and Alzheimer's Association, you want to be really careful. Terry's dad was one of those guys that say, a new cure? let's go down and buy it. He came from that generation of, he was totally trusting. And I love that about him. This scares me. This stat scares me. 10 people. 1, 2, 3. 10 people. 4 of these people, if they have symptoms of Alzheimer's that have affected their daily life, you want to get tested, you want to find out, you want to go to your doctor, what's happening to me? You want to talk to somebody. 6 of these 10 people say, not now. I have to wait. Not now. I'm not sure. Because there's a fear. There is a fear for everybody of what can possibly happen because of what you hear, what you've seen possibly. If you're a first responder or a caregiver that's right there in the trenches with your spouse or your sibling or your parent, you know it's not a comfortable thing to have going on in your life. So who are you? Don't answer me. But which one are you right now, today? Would you be somebody that would want to look into it and say, I think I have a problem or an issue? I think most of you probably would, because you'd want to get it taken care of or looked at, because it's not going to stop for you. This is what scares me. The lady that I spoke about, who said, my grandmother, my mother died of Alzheimer's. I think it's coming on me. I think I can feel the tide rushing into me. And she lives alone. The reason I was hurt is because I don't know her. I just had this desire to, how can I help you? So I'm hoping that Teresa did follow through. I see her at 4:00 today. Importance of early detection. I just spent a whole lot of money that I don't have on getting my will and my trust done, because it was done last in 2020. That's kind of silly. So I just had it done, and it cost me a bundle of money. But the point was, when we did it, I had Terry with me. So everything that's in there, we agreed to. It was something we could do together. And that's the planning that you have for your future or your friend's future or your relative's future can only be done when they're lucid, when the person living with a dementia is lucid and willing to go and can understand what you're doing together, planning-wise. Planning for your future. What about your kids? What about your house and all that? She lost her vision, but it wasn't her. Yes. Did you have your hand up? Don't, because if you raise your hand, you get the mic. Hi. So I took her to Dr. Ardron at Donaldson Eye Care. Some of you know him. Some of you like him. Some of you think he's just another doctor. He's an ophthalmologist, and I wanted to see why she can't see anything. She's looking at the screen to sing worship songs, but she can't read the words. This is a very intelligent woman. Or I hold her pills. Pills are on the table, and it was time to take her pills. Where are they? I said, honey, and I stopped. It's really easy to say, well, honey, they're right there. Can't you see them? Don't you remember they're right there? So he said he took about 3 minutes and did all the eye testing. He said, it's not her eyes. Her eyes are perfectly 20/20. It's okay. So what am I seeing? What am I seeing that she's not seeing? It's processing. So what she sees, this is a mouse. What she sees is, she doesn't know what this is. She sees words on a screen or whatever that is. She doesn't know what they are. If I give her medicine, she doesn't know what they are. She look at them. She can't see them. She cannot see them. Eventually, she ended up, her whole life was having her eyes closed, except when she had to go from one room to the other room, because everything she looked at, she could not understand what it was. Can you imagine the frustration? But that happens because visual acuity changes with a person with dementia. Some are faster and some are slower. Does it have to do? You must have a question about something you've heard of. Somebody has something. Nothing? Yes, please.
So, on the stages of dementia, on the stages of Alzheimer, one thing I've seen again and again is that eventually they no longer shower, they no longer want to dress or change their clothes, they no longer want to brush their teeth. So the hygiene part of their world is gone.
Ew.
Well, that's just, I've seen it again and again and again and again. So how long, or is it just an individual thing before that happens? And why does that happen?
All 10 of those questions are really good. I'll tell you that my Terry ended up being one of those people. It wasn't that she didn't want to get clean, but she was afraid of the shower because to her, taking a shower was foreign. Eventually, she got to the point where I would say to her, and you either have to tell the truth in a kind way or suffer with it. And I didn't think she wanted to smell bad. So I said, honey, there's an odor that's coming around you that I think we need to help with. So we did the shower. So imagine this when you're a little kid. I'll get out of the sun. Imagine when you're a little child and your mom or dad says, I'm going to give you a shower, and you have no idea what that is. No, just think about that for a second. You're a little person, you're standing in a bathtub, and all of a sudden, this big thing up above you starts shooting water, and it's soft. It's coming at you. Now that can be it can put you off. It can frighten you. So Terry eventually said, I'll take a shower, but I don't know what's going on. She stood by the tub with her clothes on. I said, okay, let's start with your clothes coming off. And we had to do that. And when she got her clothes off, I turned on the faucet. This is to answer your question directly. And I said, put your hand there and see if the water's okay. It has to be a certain temperature like we all do. We all have it. She found out it was okay. I said, now I want you to stand in the tubs, walk to the back, way back there, just like I would talk to my own daughters. Just stand right back there. I'm gonna turn this on, honey, and it's gonna come straight down. So I moved the nozzle so it came down. It wasn't hitting her. And she started to get really antsy. And I said, what I want you to do is just come forward a little bit, and I'm going to move the water slowly toward you, like we do sometimes in the shower. And when the water got so close, she just wailed and cried because it was so fearful for her. So I got in with her. We turned off the shower, just got a washcloth and did what they call a Marine Corps shower, just cleaned her up. The next time it was easier. It was one time and about 20 times, I'd say 1 in 20, that she had no tears and it was okay. But the other 19 were fearful, but she kept doing it. Did you want to know about the hair situation? Okay. My wife was a person that loved to dress well. I can remember when she was in schools, she had those French nails, toenails and fingernails. She had that outfit. Her outfits were always beautiful. Her dresses were great. Sometimes she'd be in the house the last year. She would cry and said, I don't have any clothes anymore. I don't have any of my dresses. Now, from me to this chair is one room to the closet. I don't know where anything is. I have to take her. I said, honey, they're right over here. I think they're just right over here. Now, I'm not just saying that because it's soft for me. That's the only way I knew how to deal with that. If I were to say, they're just in the closet, don't you remember? Oh, can you remember? Can you imagine that? The frustration that she would have. Once she saw them, she calmed down. Terry would go into a supermarket, we'd go into Walmart and go shopping. For me, I'm that guy that if you gave me that list, I'm in there for 20 minutes. I get everything on that list and I'm out. Boom. We'd go in there for Terry, 2.5 hours I'm in there. And she'd be taking stuff off. She took a bag. Every time we go, grabs a bag of Cheetos off the bar, rip it open and start eating them. Now, sometimes the doctor said by the way, the latter stages, nutrition can go by the wayside. Doesn't always, but it can. And he would say, if she's eating something and she finally started to not eat anything, and that's usually, you've heard that, the decline in Alzheimer's is when a patient doesn't eat, they don't chew well. So we go back to the eyes. Her eyes diminished. And when that happened, she changed her whole demeanor, because it's like when she lost her license. I made a big mistake. I don't know if you've ever made a mistake in your life, but man, I'm going to tell you something. I'm just going to own up to it. When she was first diagnosed at UC Davis, it was a 3.5 hour rigorous evaluation, and she came out just wrung out. And the neurologist said she's at mid-stage. She's in the center stage, the second stage, deep in Alzheimer's. Now, I didn't know what that meant at all. We had to look it up and kind of understand that. He said, I'm going to recommend to the DMV that her license is pulled. And I said, hang on to that. Just I'll take care of that, which I did not do. And a month later, my wife is saying, I would like to go to Kohl's. And I said, okay, just call me when you're coming home. 3 hours, I live in Soulsbyville. 3 hours later, I got a call from the security guard outside of Kohl's. Is your wife Teresa Skaff? I said, yes. I said, what's wrong? Well, she has her car. She has no idea how to get into her car. Does she have a memory problem? And I thought, how do I answer that? I said, slightly. I have a memory problem. I'm the idiot here. And so I said, I'm coming down right now. She bought something in Kohl's, but she had no idea how she paid for it. She had it, but she didn't know what it was. She bought something, lingerie or something. This is the God's honest truth. So I hung up, I got my stuff together, grabbed my keys, had the keys in the door, 1 foot out the door, starting to close the door, and the phone rang. I get to the phone, and it's the same security guard. I said, okay, I'm on my way. He said, don't hurry. Paramedics were circling the parking lot, and I flagged them down and said, this woman is in need of care. Her husband's coming, but she can't remember anything. And his concern was that she could hurt herself. And I said, so you put her in an ambulance, and I said, I couldn't get mad at him. He's doing his job. And I said, you know how fearful she's going to be. When I got to the ER, oh gosh, when she saw me, it was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. And I said, I just apologized. We all make mistakes. I hope I never made that kind of really lame mistake again. So she couldn't see, and she started listing to one side. Because she couldn't see well, she couldn't walk straight, so she started to list, and I became like her cane. So wherever we'd go, I'd grab onto her arm, not like you're holding arms walking down Main Street or something, but I really had to hold on to her. I was her sort of guide. I toileted her but she wasn't incontinent. I don't mean to be offensive. Wandering and incontinence are two of the things that strike the most amount of people in the later stages, and that's usually when people go, I can't do this anymore. I have to have help. That's where the respite grant comes in, or people that can't afford it find a quality facility that they can allow their person to go into. So let's get back to the dress. Terry loved to dress well. Her hair done, her makeup was done. Everything about her looked great. Oh, she was a fox. I always thought that forever. I didn't even notice a lot of the changes, but what I did notice is that sometimes she couldn't do her own makeup, so she'd say, can I do it? And I'd say, I can't. That's one thing I can't do. I can do a lot. I painted her toenails. I painted her toenails and half her toes. Because I had no idea where to stop. I wanted to do some art on her toenails, and that did not work out well. So she went to the salon and got her nails done, and there was a gentle guy there, young man, who he didn't speak English, but he just loved to be around her. Something they had a connection. He did a nice job on her fingernails. She always had French nails, and when she couldn't do that, she painted her own nails. And then finally, she started going to the salon and getting gel nails, and in a week, she'd peel off that gel. Because her hyper-focus was more on getting that stuff off because she wanted to paint her own nails. But let me talk about her hair. Terry had beautiful hair. She had these little flyaway things on her sideburns that they'd fly away. So I took her to a salon. It's called, it's Kelly is the hairstylist, and she's up in the Red Rock Canyon up there, Indian Rock, Red Rock Canyon. Strands. Thank you. You go there too? Watch out. So I said, Kelly, I'm really hurting here. I need to find out how I can help Terry. She dresses well, but I can't seem to do her hair well. So she taught me how to wash her hair, taught me how to condition her hair, how to dry her hair, and then she would use these clips. In her celebration of life service, I said, and Kelly was sitting there, I said, I watched you. I modeled that when I got home. I washed her hair. I rinsed her hair. She had curly hair. What didn't help was that when she dried her hair, and ladies, only you can understand this, because obviously we don't. She would do this with a towel really vigorously, and I said, you already have curly hair. This is going to be really curly. So Kelly taught us how to sort of rub her hair. Forgive me, I just have no concept of what that means. But she showed me, and then she would she'd do the clips, she'd blow dry her hair, she'd comb her, brush her hair, blow dry her hair, put the clips on, and I didn't realize that she had 6 hands, this woman, and how she was going about doing it. She gave me 3 clips, and I tried to do that myself. But whenever I'd take her to church, she looked great, but her hair looked like the Bride of Frankenstein. I could not get her hair to go. Then she one day, She said, "I'm going to give you something. It's called product." The other day I gave out all pencils and paper for questions. And I said, "Everybody look at your pencil erasers." You can imagine, the pencil erasers real little. So Kelly put a bunch of this, a little dollop that size in the middle of her hand. She put a dollop of product in the middle of her hand. And she rubbed it, and I said, "I'm trying to get this stuff to stick down on her side of her. I brushed her hair and this stuff kept coming up. To me, that was unruly hair. But I'm finding out that's just how her hair laid, and it should be fine." She put a dollop in her hand. She rubbed her hands together like magic, rubbed them through Terry's hair, and it was like, "How did you do that?" So we got home, and I bought this tube of this stuff. I don't know, Paul Mitchell. Does that ring a bell? Anyway, it's product. I get home, washed her hair, rinsed her hair, dried off her hair. Before I blow dry her hair, I get this dollop product, and I put a dollop in my hand, and I'm looking at this. Now I have this chair that faces the TV. Now, I was never a Hallmark Channel guy ever in my life. I like sports, and I like mysteries and stuff. But because Terry loved Hallmark movies, and we watch Hallmark 10 hours a day, I became a real fan. Even today, I watch Hallmark shows. And I don't know why I'm alone, but I still watch Hallmark shows. So I put a chair close to the TV. I called it Joe's Salon. "Honey, we're going to Joe's Salon." We sat down. I put a dollop in my hand, and I told her, I said, "This just doesn't look enough." I heard that. And this is true. I told you I would tell the truth about some stuff. I put a big dollop in my hand. It looked like Nivea. And I put it in there, and I rubbed my hands together, and it didn't come off. I rubbed it through her hair. So I had all this white stuff on my hands, all this white stuff in her hair, and I couldn't rinse it out. I said, "Geez, Kelly, help." I didn't know what to do. I'll just leave you with that for a few minutes. Imagine that vision. Even when Kelly did the dollop of product on her hair, she had these little flyaway things that were unruly. And finally we said, that's Terry's hair. It's not up to me to correct it. When I was in high school, I had flyaway hair. I used butch wax. That could hold your car to the floor. That stuff. By the way, at the end of this presentation, if you're liking the slides, I'm not going to go through all the slides. This is more important. You have questions that are going to be coming up. You can plan for the future if you have the person early enough, and he or she has a mental capacity to deal with you. These are the 10 warning signs, and this is another program that we would do here, or in a place. The 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, and you don't have to write this down. At the end of today, I have a QR code here. If you just take a picture of this, you can download it on your computer. All the slides that I'm showing today, you can have. You can actually call a number down here, and they'll send you all these slides. Every presentation has this for you. So see if any of these ring a bell. Any of these ring a bell. We'll start at the top. Memory changes that affect daily life. Challenges in solving problems. Now, Terry did not have all of these things. Maybe the person that's living with dementia that you have has some of these as well. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. What would be a familiar task in your house? Or for the person that you think or has Alzheimer's, what would it be? Cooking. Sure. So that's a great comment. Cooking and cleaning. Cooking and cleaning and baking and doing the budget and sweeping, doing the floors, painting. That was me. I did all that stuff. I had to do all that. And finally I said, "Lord, why am I doing all this? I'm doing all this stuff." And he said, "Why don't you be quiet and listen to this?" Terry did all those things, and she worked full time. And all of a sudden I went, "Okay, I'm sorry." Just because I like to cook. Confusion with time or place. So an Alzheimer's patient might not know what day it is. Hey, I've had days like that, haven't you? Haven't you gotten up and gone, "Is today Saturday or Sunday?" Because once I retired, I had no clue. I didn't care. I never used to wear a watch. I only wear a watch now because it talks to me. Pretty fun too. So an Alzheimer's patient will have this, but so will we. To the degree it's based on does it affect your daily life. Images and spatial relationships, that's because her vision changed. She couldn't tell. A visual, spatial relationship is how far is it from me to you? How far is it from these pills in my hand to her mouth? And finally, I had to say, honey, I'm going to open your mouth. I'm going to put them in there. Now, you can trick a person's brain. In the morning, Terry would get up and she would cry her eyes out. She cried in the morning and she'd cry in the evening. She cried because she couldn't, okay, you remember when Dr. Bissig said, repeat these 3 words for me? And she went gobbledygook? She has progressive aphasia. I don't know if you've heard that word. It's a complete loss of words. Imagine a sky. We have great skies around here with lots of stars. If you look up and all those stars are words and you're trying to find a sentence matching some words up in there and you can't find them. Aphasia is when you stop trying to find words because you can't find them. So Terry didn't speak. I didn't get an I love you for 2 years. I knew she loved me, but she couldn't speak it. I had asked her, how are you feeling? I have to guess, that's a bad question. The question is, are you feeling okay today? And she could nod. Are you hurting? And she could nod, yes or no. Do you want to tell me something? And she'd go, yes. But she couldn't tell me something. She couldn't write. Yes, yes, dear.
Well, I don't know if they ever realized
It's a huge subject because that's one of the last bastions of independence that everybody has, for men and women. And I don't think it's more difficult for one or the other. So Terry had to live. She lost her driving privileges when she got lost at Kohl's. That's when I said I have to take this stand. Somebody, the caregiver or somebody in the family, has to stand up. Now, not everybody in your family is going to be interested in this situation, by the way. I have a friend that has 3 kids. He and his wife had 3 kids. None of them will come up and give him help. Not one of them. They're all in their 40s or 50s. Not one of them, and it's been years. He's a tired man, but he has people that come in. If you lose the wanderer that you were talking about, if the wanderer gets out and knows where the car keys are and you're sleeping, that person will take that car. It's a tragedy, but how can you secure? So you have to know the person with Alzheimer's characteristics. If that person is a wanderer, how can you secure the keys in a place where he can't get it? How can you secure your home? Because if you're sleeping and he or she decides they want to go for a walkabout, talk about the issue for you. How does it look for you with driving? What happened? Can you talk about it? Have you driven someplace with this person and gotten lost?
no, I'd rather not.
I don't blame you.
I have in the past.
Has it gone on for a while? Has it gone on for a while?
Well, it seemed like a pacemaker was put in, and then after that, things seemed to be going down physically.
Okay.
I don't know if it has something to do with the
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that can affect change of mind. Steve?
Yeah, if you have a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis,
Yeah.
and you get in an accident, your insurance will not pay a penny on it. So you're risking everything you have or that you want to give to your kids or everything that you need to continue your life. If you don't do the hard thing and take those keys away, that's what you're risking.
Mm-hmm.
My dad, we had to take them away from him, and it was really hard. But that's the legal bottom line.
Yeah. Thank you. So he's saying that are you married to this person? I don't want to. I don't mean to. I don't want to affect that. If you know somebody that's married to somebody that has this issue about driving, if the person is kind of afraid what might happen, because that person may get in an accident and then it's all over for that person. DMV will pull that faster than and probably take your keys. here's an answer, one answer to your question. Call this number, please, on the card. Now, I'm not pushing this off on this number. Go ahead, ask more.
Well, we got a little diagnosis that the person is delusional.
Yeah.
It seems like they're being kind of conservative with that.
Is it a local doctor?
No, it's a neurologist.
Yes, a local neurologist.
Somebody out of town.
Okay, so let's say you're, okay, this person. I'm not gonna have you commit to something right now, but I'm gonna suggest that you call this number. Now, I don't want to lay this off for me answering, but if I give you the wrong answer of some kind, you're not benefiting. But every question you ask will be answered in time. I asked the question about, tell me about diabetes and Alzheimer's. Now, I heard that was a thing. Anybody else heard that thing? Diabetes?
Type 3.
Type 3? Well, call this number. Now, you're probably wondering, all he does is say, call the number. Because I've called that number 50 times since February, and I can tell you that I have never been disappointed. I won't give you something that I don't know. I can't do that to you. I can, some kind of airy-fairy thing. I don't know the answers to most questions, but I can sense, fear in a person. And it's important that this is taken care of pretty soon. If you got home today and found out that the person you're talking about drove somewhere and got in an accident, that would be horrible for you and for that person. Yes, dear.
Talking about that, my dad, his partner did not take the keys away in 2 accidents. God has finally got his license taken away. He's in another state. And he got fined. And after I went and got him, I had to pay all the fines, get the car fixed, and all. It was a mess. And it was because she didn't take the keys away for the car owner. And he damaged 3 other cars doing it. So if you have somebody like that, get the keys away.
You'll cry your eyes out. It'll be miserable for you to do. It's one of those decisions that you abhor doing. You do not want to do it, and you have to do it. Whether it's, I'll say, the person that needs to take the keys is the person that needs to take the keys away. And explain, by the way, on one of the sheets you have is when you're dealing with somebody with Alzheimer's, explain what's going on to the best of your ability. Explain to the best of your ability, and that person will understand to the best of their ability. Yes, dear.
It's my understanding that you can call DMV anonymously. It's my understanding that you can call DMV anonymously and report the person's having problems driving, and they'll revoke the license.
Yes, you can do that. I want you just to think that through for a minute. You are allowed to call DMV out of concern. And whether it's let's say you're just a concerned family member. Now imagine the person that's having the problem. So he gets a letter in the mail, because DMV is not going to send out somebody probably to the house, but they will call. He said, John, I got a complaint about your driving. You're not supposed to be driving. So whatever this person says has just lowered the self-esteem even more of the person that has the dementia. But you can do that. The neurologist, when that happened to Terry, he said he was going to call the DMV. And I thought that was terrible for her, but it would have been the right thing for him to do at that point.
What's the alternative? Continue to get into accidents.
Whoever the caregiver is, if there's family associated with that at all, the family has to make that decision. But you want to. I know this is really difficult, honey. Believe me, it's very difficult to say. You kind of talk to a hollow person for a minute, and you're thinking she doesn't or he doesn't understand. They absolutely understand, but they don't want to do it. No, I wouldn't want to do it. If you came to my house and told me I had to surrender my car.
So they don't have a connection between the accidents and the consequences?
If you're driving from here to Valley Springs, you have a goal in mind. The person with Alzheimer's gets behind the wheel and they don't have that goal. Right, Steve? If your dad got behind the wheel, he was behind the wheel, period. He's driving. Doesn't matter where he goes, and that's where he gets lost. That's where he called home. Is that dangerous? Oh, how would you like to drive to Sacramento and to pick up your son or your dad or your mom or your sister? Because they're lost. And somebody else calls you. That's what happened to us. It happened to me. I'm telling you, it's not but it's more, forget me, it's the person that's doing it doesn't have a clue, and we've got to help them through it. Caregiving is really tough stuff, and those tough decisions help build that bond that you have with that person. Terry did not know who I was the last 3-4 weeks. She liked to go to bed at 6 o'clock in the evening. She slept 18 hours a day. Somebody asked me the question, how do you feel? I was lonely. My wife was in the house, and I was in the house, but I was alone. Yes.
Do you see any future that the medical field, the financial people will help with Alzheimer's, because our son and daughter-in-law are struggling financially? It's difficult, almost impossible to get even Social Security disability, because Kaiser said there's so many people that are faking it, they had to make sure she wasn't faking.
I was going to say I understand that, but I do not understand that. Yes, and I can only.
We have to do without because of that.
Yes, I can only say that this organization that I'm hooked up with, the Alzheimer's organization, Alzheimer's Association, not the society. There's an Alzheimer's Society that I don't know anything about, but this association is worldwide, and they spend an inordinate amount of money on research, and it's 24 hours a day research. That's why when you saw that, you have it on. Excuse me for 1 second. You have it on here. The amount of money, $384 billion. That's a lot more than I made last year on research. And their goal is to eradicate this disease or put it to a stop or slow it down in some way. And I tell you, I'm not trying to put the fear into anybody. I can just say that this is a disease that when it starts, it only stops in one way. You ready, Steve? You want to do it? Okay. It's my friend Steve.
Hi. I'm here because I have two parents with Alzheimer's. One of them just passed 2 weeks ago, and the other one lives in Clovis near my sister, and she's in a full-time care facility, and she's been there for 10 years. And I remember the day that Dad decided he couldn't take care of her anymore, and so we had to tell her, and she was fine with all that. It was really hard on him. But since she's been in there, he was diagnosed with it and has passed. So she's still alive. She thinks my name's Tim. I'm Steve. As far as I'm concerned, I'm Tim now. If she changes my name again, I'm going to be that guy. Because it doesn't matter. Just what's in front of me. What I want to share with you is the expectation that you may have when being a caregiver. It's really easy to have an expectation that somebody's going to be grateful. Guess what? They're not. In fact, you might even be irritated. In fact, they might even hate you because you're trying to keep them from hurting themselves, which was an experience I had with my dad. About a month ago, we had this really, really hard rainstorm on a Saturday, and it was just dropping dogs and cats everywhere in the state. I was down there with them because my sister needed a break. She's taking care of her. My sister and my niece lived with her. So they were just exhausted from the whole experience. So they needed to go do some things. So I drove down to Sacramento, and I stayed with them for the weekend. And we were trying to get a caregiver in, a full-time caregiver to come in and help 4 hours a day so they would have a break. And so we were interviewing them, so to speak, or he was interviewing them. And there were some very sweet people who were used to dealing with Alzheimer's patients. They understood. But he said some things to those young ladies that was just unspeakable. And he was never like that. He was always very kind, very appreciative. It wasn't him. He was gone. It wasn't him anymore. And so the moment that he said, "You get out of here," and he said some very mean things. So she left, and I was there, and it was raining, and he decided he'd had enough of this. I don't know where he was going, but he was going somewhere. And he's pushing his walker around, and he's gathering up things and putting it in the basket in his walker. Oh, these things here, this rubber band was really important. I don't know why. So we filled up this, and I said, "Dad, where are you going?" He was mad because we were bringing people into the house. He didn't know. He says, "I'm getting out of here. It's raining. I mean, pouring. There's sheets of water pouring off the sides of the gutters." And I said, "Dad, I can't let you go out there. You know, you're going to get wet, you're going to get sick, and it's not good." And he just kept right on going. So I had to wrap him up at the door. He had his hand on the knob, and I had to just physically stop him. So I put my arms around him, and I held on to him. And his 82-year-old frail body that he had became superhuman strength. I couldn't move him. I couldn't budge him. This is the man that I'd hold his hand to get him from the chair to his walker. And all of a sudden, he's got all this strength. And so for 20 minutes, I stood there, wrapped him up, just holding him, "Dad, you can't go outside, you can't go outside." And he just continued to do it. Well, he ended up just passing out in my arms, and I drug him back into the living room, tried to get him in his chair, and I couldn't because of the weight, the dead weight, you know. So I laid him on the floor, and it was safe. It's just me and him. And I took the shoes off and tried to put a blanket on him, make him comfortable. About 10 minutes later, he woke up. The whole thing started all over again. And this time, when we were at the door and I'm holding him, my sister showed up. And she was there right in the middle of him. She ran in and just grabbed him by his face and got right in his face. "Dad, Dad, your son's here." He looks around for me and he goes, "How long have you been here?" Like, you gotta be kidding me. He was physically fighting me and didn't know it was me. So do you think he was grateful I kept him from going outside? He wanted to hit me. That's what you're going to be in for. Get rid of the computers. If they have a computer with a password, you got to get stuff out of sight. You put the keys out of sight so they can't find you. Put the computers out of sight so they can't. They will wreck your finances. He took his computer he had one of those little scooters that he was supposed to just maybe drive around the neighborhood. He decided he was going to go 10 blocks to Best Buy to take his computer because he couldn't figure out how to get in. And that's where they found him, 10 blocks away at Best Buy, trying to get them to work on his computer. We only found out because he drove all the way back and didn't have his computer. And my sister said, "Dad, where's your laptop?" I don't know. He couldn't remember. Best Buy called my sister and said, "Hey, we got this laptop. He was going to go home and get his password so we can work on it. But he never called us back." It's just things that seem like really insane. But, you know, all you can do is the right thing, and the right thing is to keep them safe. No matter how much they push back, how much they try to convince you they are in charge, they can do this, they can't be in charge, they can't. You have to be strong enough to do the right thing, to keep them safe, to keep other people safe. And if you need help, call somebody for help. Don't try and do it yourself. My dad was a big, strong man, and that had all kind of faded away because of the Alzheimer's, and he was just a frail. He went from I'm 220, 215, 220. He was taller than me and heavier than me. And when he died, he was 140 pounds. That's half of what I am right now. And but his strength was incredible. So, you know, if you have someone in your home and who is hard to deal with, you need to get help. You need to get help. You have to. It's not an option. Get help. Find somebody who will help you.
Mhm.
Oh, it absolutely does.
You know, this is a really, really traumatic thing for us. So you should probably have a referral for people.
Absolutely.
I got this.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Steve told me that story over breakfast a week or so ago, and we both were crying. Just because he loves his father. I'm going to show you something because you asked about. That's why I want to start this support group for caregivers. I would have given both of his arms to be in a care group supporter group. Anything. I would have done anything to talk to somebody. I talked to a few people at church, but they'd always ask, "How am I doing?" And I'd say, that's the wrong question. The question is, how is she doing? And how can I help her? How can I cope with that? I'm going to share a picture of my Terry died in December. I had my birthday's in January. And I had to renew my license, you know. And I'm 78, so renewing my license is always a kind of a flip the coin. Am I going to make it this time? I've got very bad eyes, and when I read the eye chart, I'm afraid. Because sometimes I've been there when they said, "I'm sorry, you missed that. You have to go do it again." We have now last 5 years. I had to take a driving test. I'm 73 years. I've only driven for 60 years. Okay. So anyway, she passed me. Now it's time for my picture. During this time, and I mentioned this before, during the time that I was caregiving for my wife, everybody, these guys, Guy and Kathy, Rocco, Lolly, Steve, everybody that saw me said, "Dude, you look tired." Well, I was tired. Terry she had delusions. She was hallucinating at periodic times. I said she went to sleep at 6 or 7 at night. She would not go to sleep without me going with her. So I'm not a 6 o'clock go to bed guy, but I had to go. I became a 6 o'clock go to bed guy, and I'd wake up at 8 and she was asleep. I'd wake up at 8 and I'd go and I'd take care of the stuff that I could not do when we were both awake or she was sleeping. If she was sleeping and I was outside trying to keep the yard clean and she woke up, boy, that was traumatic. But then I'd get back into bed and she'd say, "Who is it?" Now sometimes I would say, "It's your husband, honey, it's Joe." Sometimes I'd say it's Zorro, but she didn't know who Zorro was. I thought I was being funny. I said, "No, it's Joe, your husband." Okay. During the day, though, she knew me because I was the person that was physically with her all the time. And that's what, Steve was saying. What do you want for the person? What do you want for the person that you're talking about right now? You're here because of a concern that you have for somebody, a relative, a family member, a friend, a dear friend. You're not here just for the information. I know you're not. Because you came here to get answers about something. And those answers sometimes can be really hard to take. But it's so important for you as a person that cares about it. And you have something in your hands that deals with healthy habits for your brain. I'm in a service club here, Lions Club. We meet at the senior center. And I have a friend that's 93 years old. 2 months before Terry died, he lost his wife of 72 years. It blew me completely away then. And it took him 3 or 4 months just to get where he could talk again. He's very smart, very intelligent, and speaks eloquently. He's very quick. He can do it. He can do anything. He's a little slow on the get-go anymore because he's 93 years old. During the presentation, I said, "Frank, how old?" This is in Lions, so everybody knew everybody. "Frank, how old are you?" "I'm 93. Tell me what you and your wife did confidentiality, I'm not going to tell you her name. I'll tell you his name, but I won't tell you her name. What did you and your wife do all your, I knew the answer, all your marriage. For 70 years, they played 3 or 4 games every night, card games or dominoes, something to keep their mind active. They do puzzles, anything that they could work together, and then they go, but they wouldn't do one activity, they would do 3 or 4 activities. So now his wife passed away, and I said, Frank, how are you keeping active? He's doing the same games like solitaire instead of cards. He's doing the same kinds of skills, the same kinds of things on his own. He's a model for me. I said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. I want to make sure that my mind is as sharp as yours. He forgets things. Like when he goes to the store, he has a list of things, and he said, there's something I'm supposed to put on here, but I can't. I said, is that it? You forgot the ketchup? I wouldn't worry too much about that. He's not too concerned about where his memory's going. These guys have a very special lifestyle. Rocco, how old are you?
98.
They have a certain diet, which is on your thing. These people are considered my elders, but they live a life that I would find difficult to do. And yet they live their life like this. Their diet, their exercise, their caring for each other. That's what all we can do is unconditionally love that person. Guy, geez, I've really held you too long. Man. So this is an impact on caregivers. Or I have a friend whose wife had a stroke, and she had dementia before she had the stroke, and then she had the stroke. Double jeopardy. Not only was she physically impaired on one side, but she was still emotionally going through dementia. I think she had Alzheimer's. He was the guy that would talk to her like this. Honey, I mentioned this before. Honey, I just told you that. And I could not get him to stop. Then his wife passed away. And he said, if only I would have showed her the love that I had for her. He was trying to, sometimes caregivers do the very best we can. You just do the best you can. So the next presentation, at some point down the line, if that's what you desire, is on caregiving. It's very interactive. And you really grow more by sharing more. The more you get, because we all have the same empathy for people. I'm in a grief group right now, again for the second session, and it's helped me so much to see that what I did for Terry was what I would want her to do for me. That love and unconditional caring that you give to somebody is so important. Again, I can't go on with the rest of the slides because I'm holding you too late. The rest of them are about the Alzheimer's Association, which you can find up here. There's some handouts up here too. Please, any question you have, just call that number. They might ask you your name, where you're from, or your zip code. That's generally where they're going to ask you. So here's another thing I need you to do. Whether you're in a partner, if you have a partner in this room, or somebody you can trust, this is how silly I am. I'm in an Alzheimer's group for memory loss, and I forgot to bring the sign-up sheets. The Alzheimer's Association has sign-up sheets that I always bring, and the one thing I didn't bring today, it's the thing I needed to do, and I asked you to sign up. So I made these really crude sign-up sheets that are on the front table up here. And it just asks for your first name and your last name and your zip code, and if you want to receive any information from them. That's not the important part. The important part is to see how many people we reach. Because you're reaching you here, your 40 people or 30 people, helps to fund the research. So it's important. I don't care if you want anything from them. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not here to schlock materials for the Alzheimer's Association. I have no kitchen anymore because it's full of Alzheimer's stuff. Yeah. So all this stuff you have, please take it with you. And if you have any questions, if you want my personal phone number or text number, I'll be happy to give it to you. I have no problem with that. I trust you. This is a confidential room. What says, we have a saying in Celebrate Recovery, what goes on in here stays in here when we leave here. Here. You got to have some trust with some people. Are there any questions? Anything else that you want to mention or talk about at all? You know that song, It's Now or Never? Get a hold of me or call that number if you have a question. And if you have, yes. It's up. I'm going to start a caregiver support group in June. At Willow Springs. That's the only facility that I've talked to. Yeah. And it's sponsored, it has the headline of the Alzheimer's Association. It's different than another support group that might start up just because people care about it, it's great. But caregivers have to talk to somebody. You have to have an outlet. As Steve was saying, if you're a caregiver and have no outlet and your batteries run down, who pays the price? The person that you're giving care to. You have to be, the biggest thing that you'll hear as a caregiver is you got to take care of yourself. And that's tough to do because you don't want to leave. We had 2 friends that would come in once a week for a couple hours so I could run errands. And one of them would say, my friend Brenda would say, take as long as you need. So I'd go shopping and I was racing because I didn't want to have her there for too long. I just couldn't do that. So my wife's name was Terry, and the last part of this is our son David. Now, Elizabeth and David are three years apart. She's 55 and he's younger. She came up, like I said, visited every 6 weeks, saw her mother, saw her when she was she had a stroke on the 3rd of December. And she was in the doctor's hospital, and we were stroking her arms, kissing her, talking with her. She had a brain tumor, not not an. She had a what? Clot. Thank you. I'm the clot. She had a clot on her brain, and they had to operate quickly. We do not have a cardiac neurologist in this city, so they had to helicopter to doctor's hospital. Lizzie drove up from Modesto. I had to go home and get some clothes, and I drove to Modesto. And by the time I got there, they had already done the surgery. We knew that. We knew it was going to take place. Otherwise, she would have died then. We couldn't find her in the hospital. Finally, it's pretty big. Anyway, once we found her, she was all tubed up and in a room. She was unconscious at that point. And he told me the brain has a little brain bleed at the point of the clot. So we're going to monitor all night, and we'll do another CAT scan in the morning. So on the morning of the 4th, I decided, Lizzie stayed down in Modesto. I had to come home and sleep in the bed we slept in. So I came home to Salisburyville. Got up in the morning and left, and got down about 7:30. I get a call from the neurosurgeon. He said, this is Dr. Schmizzle-Ferry. We have, I just have this information for you. We just saw the CAT scan of your wife, and her brain is completely engulfed with blood. The chance of survival, I feel, is 0. I didn't cry. I was just numb. You know that, have you ever been in that position? You're just totally hollow. So I said, now how am I going to tell Elizabeth? So anyway, that worked out. We spent the last times with her mother. David, on the other hand, never saw his mother outside of the beautiful fox she was. He never had he never saw her because he couldn't take it. Now, would I blame him? Would I make him guilty? No. Some people, that's life. This is the way it goes. Lizzie that's the way she was. So I want to thank you for coming. It's an honor, absolute an honor for me just to do anything with you folks. If you're interested in another event, let Guy know, or the powers that be here. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. If you need my number, or if you have any questions after this, please let me know. Thank you all. Thank you.